This is Known Podcast, hosted by Dustin Bennett, the lead pastor of Known Victory Church in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Known Podcast is dedicated to helping you grow closer to Jesus, unleashing the power of your creativity, and developing you as a leader. We hope you enjoy today's episode.
Known Podcast, we got a new episode. It's going to be amazing today. And one thing that we've gotten so good at, in our society is giving up. We've gotten so good at quitting. We've gotten so good at throwing something away, and for so many reasons, whether it's our job or our education or our relationships or things like we've gotten so good at quitting. I think it's because we think that quitting is easier than persevering, right? It's easier for us to just say, no, this is too much work. This is too hard for me. I'm going to move on to something else. I'm going to move on, to something that might be easier for me or better for me. We've gotten so good as a society at quitting. And these aren't just theories. These are realities that we're seeing, even statistically. I was doing some research, and, in 2021, the United States saw 47 million people voluntarily quit their jobs. 47 million people. And to put this into perspective, right now, Canada has roughly 38 to 40 million people living in Canada. That means that in the United States, more people than we have in Canada voluntarily quit their jobs in 2021 alone. 47 million people. And whether this was due to the pandemic or to the economy or whatever it is, we saw what experts are calling the Great Resignation, a time where people are quitting and resigning at extraordinary rates, more than we've ever seen before. And we look within Canada in 2021, we saw an increase of just over 1%, or equal to about 28,000 more people get divorced in 2021 compared to 2020. 28,000 more people, 14,000 more marriages ended in divorce last year than the year before. And we were even I was looking at universities. We're seeing dropout rates in universities going up year over year, and this has been happening pretty steadily year over year. But in 2019 to 2020, we saw an increase dropout rate go up over 3%. From year over year, people dropping out of school, freshmen, dropping out, first year of university, and even higher for those who are part-time students. We're seeing statistically, in our world, in Canada, in the United States, we're seeing so many people quitting. We're seeing so many people resigning. We're seeing so many people, taking time to just maybe give up, whatever it looks like. I'm not looking at people's motives. I'm just saying, we're seeing these statistics where we've gotten really good at quitting. We've gotten really good at resigning. We've gotten really good at giving up on things rather than actually being people of perseverance. And one thing I think we need to realize is that loyalty is sexy, right? Loyalty is attractive. Loyalty is something that we're looking for in people. Loyalty is something that we're looking for in spouses, right? We want to have loyal spouses. We're looking for loyalty when we go to work, when we're looking for loyalty with our boss, that they're going to be loyal to us. And we're also, as maybe employers, we're looking for loyal employees. We're looking to hire people who will be faithful. We're looking to hire people who will be loyal. We don't really want to start anything with disloyal and untrustworthy people, right? We want to look for people in every area. When we're looking for people that we can trust, and that people that are going to be loyal, not people who are just going to quit right away. We want to have loyal people in our lives, those people who will be there for us through thick and thin. Those who will be there for us in hard times and good times. Maybe you've been to a wedding, right? And we go to a wedding, through sickness and health, right? Through all of it, we're looking for people that will be loyal to us, even when things are hard. That they won't just run away at the first sight of conflict or animosity. They're not just going to give up as soon as things get a little bit more challenging. We're looking for loyal people that we can trust, won't quit when things get hard, when things get challenging, when conflict arises. That's what we're looking for when it comes to people. We're looking for loyalty, because loyalty is key to longevity, and it's also key to success, right? I think sometimes we don't see the success we're looking for. We don't see what we're looking for. Why? Because when it got hard, we just gave up. It's like, oh, this is too hard. We started our business, and it's like, no, this is way too challenging. And so we didn't have this loyalty to it. As soon as something shiny came along, as soon as something better looking came along, something that we saw that might offer us more, we just quit what we had because no, I'm striving to get more. And so we're going to stop being loyal because we're just trying to get more. And that's what loyalty, we have to learn how attractive and beautiful loyalty is to us. And the reality is that we have lost the art of loyalty as humanity. We've lost this art of faithfulness. We've lost this art of being loyal and faithful in relationships, being loyal and faithful in our workplaces, being loyal and faithful in our churches. We need to go back to the thought and learn the art of loyalty again, to become people who are loyal, people who are faithful, people who won't quit when it gets hard, that'll just keep fighting and keep going and bring people along and bring courage. We need loyalty in order to find longevity and to find success in every area of our lives. We have to stop quitting when things get hard, and we've lost this art of loyalty. When a job comes along that we think will fulfill us better, whether the pay is better or not, we jump at it right away. Yeah, this is what I've been looking for. Then, if I can get this job, then I'll be happy. If I finally get this job, then I'll be happy. Or maybe we're looking for like a better looking person comes along, right? And so we're like, no, I'm going to give up on my relationship because look, this is going to be better. This is what's going to make me happy. And we have to learn that just because you get something new does not mean you're going to be happy. If you can't be happy where you are, if you can't be content where you are with what you have, you're never going to be able to be loyal. You're never going to learn that loyalty is beautiful. We're never going to learn that if we're constantly not content with what we have. We're always searching for more, always searching for new, always searching. And if we are, we're never going to be people of loyalty. You will never be able to be loyal if you don't learn to be content. We are loyal when we realize the value of what we already have, the value of who we are and what we've accomplished, and we learn to be content, and we can live with what we already have. That's what loyalty is. We learn to be content with what we have and not the constant mindset of getting more. And this is what the writer of Hebrews in Scripture, this is what he says. He says, keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. Money itself, right? Money itself will not destroy you. Having money is not going to destroy your life. It's not going to make you prideful. It's not going to make you arrogant. Money is not going to do that. But what will happen? Money will destroy you when your love of money or your love of the more overtakes your love for people. When money becomes a problem, when the striving for more becomes a problem, when we see the shiny thing, when it becomes a problem is when our love for that becomes more than our love for people. When our love for that becomes more than our love for our families or our employees or our boss, when that happens, that's when we start to see a problem. That's when we start to see a problem. Being content leads to loyalty because we stop chasing what we want and we start loving what we have. Stop striving and stop chasing the things that we see. Maybe you fish. I'm not a big fisherman, but I've gone fishing before. I don't mind, fishing. It's interesting. Fish are attracted to shiny things and they'll go after them, even though it's harmful, even though it's going to hurt them, right? They don't realize. They just see the shiny thing and they go after it. And then they end up getting this hook and you pull them out of the water, right? We're like that too as humans. We see the shiny thing. We see the thing. We're chasing all these things. We're chasing success. We're chasing fame. We're chasing money. We're chasing the promotion. We're chasing these things that we stop loving what we already have and we stop being loyal to our families and to our workplaces and to our churches because this is better. This what's in front of me is better. What I'm looking at in front of me, beside me, that's what's better. And we have to stop chasing things and start loving what we already have. The question I want to answer today, and the point of this episode, This is the lost art of loyalty. And the question I want to answer today for all of us is this question of what does loyalty do, right? What is it that loyalty actually creates or develops or builds in us as people? What does loyalty do? And I have a few things today that I think will help us when it comes to the value of loyalty, why we need to be loyal, and what it does inside of us. And so number one is that loyalty develops character. That's what loyalty does. It develops our character. As hard as loyalty can be, it's necessary for success. It's necessary for learning because loyalty develops our character. It leads us to growing and learning because we grow the most when things are hard. Right? That's the reality. You're going to learn the most. You're going to learn patience when you're face to face with a moment where you need patience. You're going to learn patience when you're driving through rush hour and you're running late because you left your house late. You're going to learn patience when there's nothing you can do to change your circumstance, and you have to learn to be like, I'm going to be okay. Loyalty it grows our character because rather than run away from conflict, rather than run away from pain, rather than run away from it, we face it head on and we say, no, the mission of this company, the mission of my family, the vision for my church is so big that I'm willing to face problems head on. I'm going to continue to fight. I'm going to be loyal. Even though it's hard, even though it's challenging, loyalty develops character. Loyalty will develop your character. If you want to grow in an area, you have to put yourself in situations where you come face to face with a moment where you can learn and grow in that area. If you want to learn how to grow in love, put yourself in places where you have to face hate head on. If you want to learn to grow in compassion, put yourself in situations where you're face to face with poverty, where you're face to face with problems, where you're face to face with the marginalized. If you want to learn to be less angry, put yourself in the situations that make you angry so you can learn and grow, to have more control, to have more discipline for yourself. That's what loyalty does. It helps us grow our character. Loyalty keeps the problems in front of us, right? It keeps the problems that we face in front of us. When we're constantly running away from the hard things, which we do, things are hard. We don't like to face it head on. It's scary. It's painful. It's embarrassing. Like we don't like to face things head on. But we're never going to grow our character. We're never going to learn to overcome if we're never putting ourselves face to face with these things to help us learn and grow, because we're limiting our growth because we're running away from spaces and moments and situations that are going to help us grow the most. For me, I was a youth pastor for almost 7 years at one church. And it's the church I grew up in, the church I was dedicated as a baby in, the church I was baptized in, and I ended up serving on staff there for almost 7 years as a youth pastor. Youth pastor at this church, and I loved it. It was amazing. But it's interesting, almost 7 years as a youth pastor. The average youth pastor lasts about 18 months. Across, North America. The average youth pastor only lasts 18 months in their position. 18 months. But the reality is that 18 months is not enough time to develop you enough, to develop your character, to develop trust within your teams and within your organization for them to actually learn to trust you better. 18 months is just the start of developing deep connection and deep trust and deep relationship. 18 months. I learned so much during my first 2 years, and we learned that as we were thinking about it, most of our success came after the 2-year mark. It took us about 2 years to develop our teams and to get the right people on the bus and to give people the right positions and to, it took us almost 2 years to develop enough our own character in order to actually lead something that we viewed as beautiful and successful. It took almost 2 years. And we learned so much during those 2 years. And most of what I learned came from failure and from mistakes, right? We learned the most from failure and mistakes, and that's what I learned a lot. I came into it pretty prideful and arrogant. and I came into it with my own ideas and what I was capable of. And I learned the hard way and pretty quickly humility, right? I learned quickly. And that's what develops our characters when we don't quit. Those moments where I was like, yeah, I should just, I'm not good fit for this. I shouldn't be doing this. So there's got to be somebody better. And I learned, no, I have to be loyal. I have to be faithful. And then when we're faithful, we start to develop our character to a place where we can actually carry the weight. We can actually carry the weight of success. Success is heavy. It's not easy to carry success. It's not easy to carry it. And we have to make sure our character is developed enough to carry it. And that's where faithfulness and loyalty comes in. When you look at your life right now, what could the problem you are facing right now be teaching you? Right? What are you facing right now? We're all facing something, whether it's at home with our kids or with our spouse, or maybe it's at work with our employees or with our partners or with our board. It might be, what are you facing right now that's hard, and what might it be teaching you? What is it growing in you? It might be growing your patience. It might be growing your patience, saying, no, I want this deal to get done right now, but it's going to take an extra 2 months. And so you're just kind of waiting. It's like, I want this to happen now so we can get started. And you have to learn to be patient. It might be teaching you love. You might have people around you that are hard to love, right? People that are just challenging for you to just love properly. And what is that teaching you? Is it teaching you to love better? What is what you're facing right now teaching you? And then number 2 is loyalty builds long-term trust. That's what loyalty does. It builds long-term trust because people know that you won't run away at the first sign of hardship. People learn to trust you. Why? Because you're going to be there for them. You're going to be there with them in the middle of the hardest moments. That's where trust is built. If you want to learn trust, you have to learn the long game. Trust isn't built in a moment. Trust isn't built, in 1 minute. Trust is built over time. And so you have to be willing to be loyal to people, even when things are hard. The people that you trust the most are the people that you can call when things are hard. The people that will be there for you in your hardest moments. Those are the people that you trust the most. That they'll have your back no matter what. In Proverbs 18:24, this is what it says. It says, a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. When we see this concept, a man of many companions may come to ruin, you see this concept, in celebrity culture, in the world of fame. We see so many athletes and, musicians and artists and actors. They go through extremely hard moments, as all of us do. They're human beings. They go through such hard moments. Yet when they share their story, it's a story filled with addiction and isolation. A story of being bitterly alone so many times because they have the companions. They have the big following on social media. They have the people who love them from the outside. But as soon as things get hard, those people tend to vanish. Just because you have a huge following doesn't mean you have deep connection. Just because you have a lot of peers or companions doesn't mean you have any true friends. Loyalty builds trust. Are you being loyal to the people around you? Are you being loyal to your employer? Are you being loyal to your employees? Are you being loyal to your friends? Are you being loyal to your family? Are you being loyal to your spouse and to your children? That's where you build trust. And so oftentimes trust takes time to build, and it can get broken in one moment, and it takes a long time of healing and restoration to build that trust back. Loyalty is so key to building trust. And Simon Sinek, maybe you know Simon Sinek, he's an author and a speaker, international speaker. And I was watching this video that he was giving this talk one time, and he was talking about trust and performance. And he said one day he was working with the Navy SEALs, right? One of the most well-run organizations with some of the most brilliant minds and athletic people, people that are just absolutely incredible, part of the Navy SEALs. And he asked them, right? He asked them, how do they pick the people for SEAL Team 6 or the best of the best of the best? How do they pick from their wide group? How do they pick the best people for those roles? Because it's important, right? In an organization, in church, business, whatever, in your family, finding out what makes the best people and what's going to be the best fits with your team is really important. So we asked this question to these guys. And he said they drew him a graph, right? A line like this, boom. They drew him a graph, and on one side they wrote performance, and on the other side they wrote trust, right? They had performance on the side and trust, on the bottom. And they defined performance as how you perform on the battlefield, or how you perform at work, how you perform when you're, getting your tasks done, like your performance review. How are you doing when it comes to your task? And then they define trust as your performance off the battlefield. That's how they define, trust is like, what's your performance at home? What's your performance, outside of work, outside of the battlefield? And they kind of define it like this in the military, right? They define it like this. They say, I may trust you with my life on the battlefield, right? Your performance, but do I trust you with my money and my wife? That's the trust side. I might trust you with my life, but do I trust you with my wife, or do I trust you with my money? That's how they kind of define these things. And when they look at this graph, right, performance and trust, they say, there's different, obviously, groups as a part of that, but they say you'll have people that are low performance and low trust. Obviously, these are the type of people you do not want to have. These are the type of people that you do not want to have in your teams. These are not the desirable people, right? The people who are low performance and low trust. You can't trust them at work. You can't trust them at home. These are the people that nobody really wants to have on their teams. There's also the people who are high performance and high trust, right? These are the people everybody wants. The people who perform really well. And, at work, they'll do everything. They're going to do it really well, and they're going to be trustworthy at home. You're going to trust them with work, and you're going to also trust them, with your personal life. These are the people that everybody wants. Of course, everybody wants these people. Then you also have the people who are high performance and low trust. The people who perform really high, but you don't trust them. And what they say is that these people tend to always are toxic leaders and toxic team members. The people who you trust them, they're going to do exactly what they're supposed to do, but they are horrible on teams. They do not treat people well. You don't trust them. They're trying to manipulate. Like, these are the kind of people that are high performance and low trust. And what they say, it's so interesting. As he was sharing this, he said that they said they would rather have someone with high trust and medium performance, and even sometimes someone with high trust and low performance, than the person who is high performance and low trust. Because those people create toxic environments. Because you do not trust them. They might perform really well, but you do not trust them on your teams. Maybe you've been on a team like that. I think most of the time when you look at teams, right, you can look at on your team, you can ask the team, okay, who's the person who's horrible, right? And they all know the person. They're like, yeah, it's this person. They're just like, we don't want to be around them. They're horrible. They're just not like good people. They create toxic environments. And he goes on to say in this video that in business or in work or in life, so many times does the person with high performance, low trust get the responsibility, get the promotion, get the raise. Why? Because it's so hard to gauge trust. There's so many metrics and so many tests and so many ways to, do performance. You see your performance reviews. You can see, this is what your goals were, your tasks were, and this is what you actually accomplished over that time. We can gauge performance. We can gauge it. But it's so interesting because it's really hard to gauge trust. There's not a lot of metrics to gauge this yet. We all know the people who we trust and we don't trust. There's a lot of people that you might look at and be like, yeah, would you want them to babysit your kids? Or like, no chance. Then there's other people, it's like, I trust you with my kids. And I trust you to take care of them. I trust you to watch them. And I think for all of us, we look at that context of babysitting our kids. I'd rather have somebody who's high trust. I trust them to make sure my kid is safe than somebody who might have everything together, but I do not trust them with my kid, right? We want to have people who are more trustworthy, even if their performance is maybe a little bit less. This is the beauty of loyalty, is that loyalty builds this trust. Right? Loyalty actually builds trust in relationships. Loyalty builds trust in our homes. Loyalty builds trust everywhere we go. And trust is so important to our longevity and to our success. If you can't trust your boss, or you can't trust your spouse, or you can't trust your pastor, it's going to be really hard to keep serving and showing up. Loyalty builds trust because we were there when everybody else ran away. We were there when they were struggling, when they were going through hardship. We were there. and they trust you with their life. And if you can't trust the people around you, it might be time to try and find somebody, or you can grow yourself to be trustworthy, to grow yourself to be somebody that is loyal, and you learn trust because you've been there in the hardest moments. Even though it's hard, you stuck around. And then lastly is this one, number 3. Loyalty teaches healthy conflict, right? This is what loyalty also does, in our lives. It teaches us to be healthy when it comes to conflict. And the longer you stay at a job, the longer you stay in a church, the longer you're married, the more time you have for conflict to come up, right? The longer you're somewhere, the more loyal you are, conflict's going to come. And how we respond to conflict, are we being healthy or toxic when it comes to conflict in our lives? Because conflict is necessary to relationship. Conflict is necessary for growth. It's necessary to build trust. Conflict. Yet honestly, I think a lot of us, this is me, I hate conflict. We suck at conflict, and we will do whatever it takes to avoid conflict at all costs. We will run away. We will avoid. We will even pretend everything is okay in order to not have that hard conversation, to not bring up some of our problems when it comes to work, with our spouse, whatever. Some of us, we hate it, and then others of us, we love conflict. It's like we thrive when conflict is there. In fact, some of us, we pursue conflict. We create conflict because we love it so much, and we're so good in hard conversations. We love to be a part of those hard conversations. I think there's a lot of us with conflict, we need to learn how to be healthier when it comes to conflict. We need to learn to be better at it. And when we're in relationship with people, we have to learn how to have healthy conflict. And loyalty, it teaches us this because our response to conflict coming up isn't to run away. It's not to tear somebody apart. It's to sit in conflict, to be transparent and real, and to be kind in the middle of conflict. Doctors Les and Leslie Parrott are marriage coaches. They're marriage gurus, if you will. And they've developed so many incredible materials and resources for marriages, including like premarital counseling and conflict types and, blogs and so many things. And it's absolutely incredible. And one of the things they wrote was this article called "The 4 Communication Barriers and How to Spot Them." And I'm going to read an excerpt from this that I think might help us. And so we have 4 different communication barriers that we're gonna go through here. And then number 1 is placating. The placator is a yes person. This person is eager to please and apologetic. You frequently hear placators say things like, "whatever you want," or "don't worry about me, it's okay." They want to keep the peace at any price, including feeling worthless. Studies show that placators have difficulties expressing anger and hold so many feelings in, they often become depressed. As a placator, you should remind yourself that it's okay to disagree. If your spouse is a placator or your boss is a placator, try to recognize these actions so that you can help them express their feelings when they are holding them back. Number 2 is blaming when it comes to communication. The blamer is a fault finder who criticizes relentlessly and speaks in generalizations. You'll often hear blamers saying things such as, "you never do anything right," or "you're just like your mother." Deep inside, blamers usually feel unworthy or unlovable and can get angry at the anticipation that they won't get what they want. Blamers tend to find that the best defense is a good defense. And if you or your spouse or your boss, whatever, are a blamer, try to recognize when you feel this way and try to let this go. Once you recognize these behaviors, learn to speak on your own behalf without indicating others in the process. Number 3 is computing. The computer is reasonable, calm, and collected person. This person usually never admits mistakes and expects people to conform and perform. You'll often hear the computer saying, "upset? I'm not upset. Why do you think I'm upset?" Computers fear emotion, and prefers facts and stats. If you're a spouse or your boss, whatever, often find yourself computing, then it's time to open up the communication doors and express your real feelings. Computers need someone to ask them how they feel about certain things. And if you recognize this trait in the people you're around, having an intentional conversation with them may help. And then number 4 is distracting. The distractor resorts to irrelevancies under stress and avoids direct eye contact and direct answers. Distractors are also quick to change the subject. You'll often hear them saying things along the lines of, what problem? Let's go shopping. Distractors fear fighting and confrontation that can bring this on. The solution? Distractors need to know they are safe and not helpless. Problems can be solved and conflicts can be resolved. Encourage yourself or the people around you to confront problems head on with productive conversation rather than burying them. So when you look at your life, when you look at your relationships, when you look at work, when you look at your marriage, when you look at with your kids, whatever, when it comes to conflict, do you see yourself or that person or that in one of these four areas? Maybe placating, right? Again, the yes person, the blaming, where the blamer always finds fault. Maybe the computing, they're reasonable, but they never want to admit their own mistakes. And then distracting, where they're trying to just do whatever can to get out of it. They're just like, yeah, let's go shopping, right? Do you see yourself in any of those when it comes to conflict or communication that you tend to go to? Because what's beautiful is that loyalty pushes us to learn more about ourselves and the people around us, the people that we're in relationship with at work, at home, at church, whatever. That will help you learn to have better conversation, to have better conflict. Loyalty helps us learn about one another, to encourage people to be around with good people and to learn to have better conflict and better conversations. We learn our natural responses to conflict and communication, and we will learn theirs as well. So we can get better at conflict and having the hard conversations. Take some time to reflect on yourself or, again, your situation. How do you respond to conflict? How does your boss or your spouse respond to it? And I want to encourage you to create space to learn about the people you are in contact with. Learn about the people you're in conflict with. Learn about them rather than just resent their responses. Learn why they're responding in this way. Why is it that they are trying to distract you? Why is it? And learn those things. That's going to help you have way better conflict because we're loyal enough to that person or to that organization or to our church where we're willing to have the hard conversation. Loyalty helps us have those hard conversations because we don't want to give up on the vision or the dream behind what we're doing. And so we're willing to have the hard conversations. So a quick recap on loyalty. Loyalty does three big things. There's more, but three big things we've talked about. Number one is loyalty develops our character. Number two is loyalty builds long-term trust. And loyalty teaches healthy conflict. These three things will really help us as we learn why loyalty is important. But I want to, end this talking today about the times you shouldn't be loyal. Are there times where loyalty is something you need to push aside for your health or for your safety? I want to say absolutely. It might sound weird. It might sound bizarre, but it's true. So I want to give us three scenarios where we should not be loyal. Number one is when there's any sort of abuse. Abuse is not something to take lightly. It's not something that we take lightly, whether it's emotional or physical or spiritual or sexual abuse. Sometimes people have been dishonorable to us, and it's time that we flee. We don't have time to sit around in relationships that are destroying you. You don't have time to sit around in relationships where abuse is a part of your story. They're being dishonorable to you, and you just stop honoring them, and you leave. You flee. You don't just walk away. You run away. You flee. You say, I want no part of this. Do not let loyalty get in the way of being in an unhealthy space. If you're being abused in any way, leave. Take some time. Maybe they'll learn, maybe they'll grow. I don't know, but take some time to get healthy because you need to be healthy. You need to be healthy. You cannot be loyal to someone who's purposely abusing you, who's purposely hurting you. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. You cannot be loyal to someone who's doing this to you. Your safety is more important than your loyalty. If someone is hurting you, leave. It's not worth it. You often don't realize how toxic an environment is until you leave. You don't realize the abuse sometimes until you leave or until somebody maybe brings it up to you. But if someone's abusing you, run away, flee. Get out of there. Get out of that environment. Get out of that place. Toxic relationships and workplaces and churches where abuse is happening are places to flee, to not stick around, to run away. Get yourself into a healthy place and a healthy relationships. Do not be loyal if there's abuse present. Do not do it. And then number 2 is when you are being manipulated. The tricky part about manipulation is that most often you don't realize it until somebody else brings it to your attention, or you take some time to actually think about what's going on. And there's, signs of manipulation. I got these from the website, verywellmind.com. When it comes to manipulation, how do you gauge if you're in a space where manipulation is a part of that story? And number 1 is gaslighting. Now, a person who is gaslighting you may lie to you, blame you for things, and minimize what you're feeling. They might say, you're crazy, or you're too sensitive. Someone who is gaslighting you tries to make you feel that you aren't worthy of expressing yourself and that your feelings and emotions are not real or valid. People gaslight in order to deny any wrongdoing on their part and to assert control over what you think and what you do. Gaslight number 2 is passive-aggressive behavior. As opposed to using direct communication, a person who behaves passive-aggressively doesn't express how they're really feeling. The person around you, they might use avoidance tactics such as actively dodging you or dodging the discussion of certain topics. Sarcasm can be another sign of passive-aggressive communication. A person who is behaving passive-aggressively might try to get attention by making overly dramatic gestures like sighing or pouting. They might use immature emotional reactions to bait you into asking them what's wrong without just coming out and saying it. And the next one, lying and blaming. Someone who is emotionally manipulative will most likely avoid taking responsibility for their actions. They might blatantly lie or exaggerate things to portray themselves in a more positive light. They might even shift the blame to you, making you doubt yourself and what actually happened. There's another example of gaslighting. Though many of us tell white lies or lies we consider harmless, a person who is emotionally manipulative will likely tell lies to mislead you. Next one is threats and coerciveness. Someone who coerces you using threat or force to get you to do something is being emotionally manipulative. For instance, the person around you might threaten to leave you, your spouse or your girlfriend, whatever, might threaten to leave you because you won't go along with exactly what they want to do. Your partner, they might do this. They might even threaten, self-harm for themselves. They might even threaten to, take their own life. And this is causing deep emotional trauma for a lot of people. They may or may not actually hurt themselves, but self-harm should always be taken seriously too, to take care of them. And this is one of the things that happens. Another one is withdrawal and withholding. Another side of emotional manipulation is if the person or your partner or whatever withdraws from you, maybe they give you the silent treatment if you're doing something they don't want you to do. They might withhold information, affection, or other things to punish you, even for something that's insignificant. They might refuse to stop withdrawing or withholding until you do what they want you to do. This is manipulation. And then lastly is isolation. A person who wants to control you might try to cut you off, try and cut off your contact with your friends or with your family, especially if any of your loved ones express a dislike or distrust of that person in your life, the emotionally manipulative person, right? If they say, I don't know if I trust this person, they're going to say, hey, you don't want a relationship with them anymore. On the other hand, an emotionally manipulative person might try to gain the support of your family and friends for their own benefit. For instance, if your partner, let's go in the context of your spouse or your partner, knows that you want to leave them, they might try convincing your family or your friends to tell you to stay with them. They might try and alienate you from your support system, take away the people or the organizations or the church that's trying to support you the most. They might try and break those relationships, causing you to doubt your decision to move on from the relationship. These are the ways that manipulation might be a part of your story. And take a look at your situation and see if some of these traits are present. If you see these traits in your workplace, you see these traits in your church or in your relationship, create a place for a conversation to bring up the concerns and the patterns that you are seeing. Have the conversation. Say, hey, I'm seeing this pattern. I'm seeing this when it comes to, manipulation. I'm seeing these things and I'm struggling. I'm really struggling with what I'm seeing. And if they can't say, oh, sorry, I didn't, they're not doing it on purpose, and you can help grow and you can learn and you start to see those patterns dissipate, then you can maybe start to bring loyalty back. But manipulation causes us to mistrust people. And it's really hard to be loyal to people and organizations that we do not trust. And so if people are manipulating you or people are abusing you, it's time to take a step back and understand the fullness of what's going on. Take a step back from being loyal to make sure that you are okay, to make sure that you are being healthy. And then the last situation when it comes to places to not be loyal, the last one is this: when you're being used rather than cherished. Every organization, every church, and relationship needs give and take. As leaders of these establishments, we need to stop using people and start cherishing people. Our families, our businesses, our churches need to be dedicated to building people rather than just building ourselves. Dedicated to building and in adding value and loving people. We need to do this. We need to learn to value people by their true worth. If your church, family, or job are just using you for their own purposes and do not care about your well-being or do not care about your health, take time to have real conversations. Don't just disappear one day. Have the conversation. Be honest, be real, don't be mean, be kind, and don't assume intent. Just stick with the facts, try and take emotion out of it, and have the conversation. But if these conversations don't lead to health, it's time to leave. Go somewhere where you are valued for who you are and not just for what you do. Find a community that loves you and cares about you, an organization, a person, a family that's worth being loyal to, an organization that's worth being loyal to. Find that. If there's abuse, run away. If there's manipulation, run away. If people are just using you and not loving you and cherishing you, run away. Find a place worth being loyal to. Jesus cares more about your heart than he cares about your work. Work is important, absolutely, but he wants you. He cherishes you. He cares about your well-being. He cares about your health. Even if you feel like you have nothing to offer him, he loves you anyways. That is where loyalty is of the highest value. We shift from a place of quitting to a place of loyalty by realizing comfort is a disease that our character is susceptible to. Comfort will guide us through the easiest path, the path of least resistance, with the least problems and the least pain. But loyalty is the antidote. It builds courage so that we can face the hard things head on, that even when things are difficult, we are steadfast and we are faithful and we are loyal. We don't give in to the temptation to quit. We don't give in to the voices that say we can't do it. We realize that our future is built by how we respond to life's hardest moments. Will you be loyal, or will you give in to the lie that comfort is your only solution? Let us grow in our loyalty. Let us learn to be people who persevere. Let us learn to be people that will persevere through life's most challenging moments. Loyalty is attractive. Loyalty is sexy. Loyalty is beautiful. Let us learn the art of loyalty. And I believe that you can do this, and I believe that we can do this together.
Thank you for joining us today for the Known Podcast. We have new content coming out every Wednesday, so make sure to come back next week for a new episode. If you haven't yet, make sure to follow us on Instagram @Known Podcast and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. See you next week.